My beloved child, there is a trembling in the unseen realm tonight, and Archangel Michael has stepped forward with a message so heavy, so urgent, that even his radiant voice carried the sound of sorrow. He whispered, "I saw their future and I could not stop crying. Not because you are doomed, not because darkness has overtaken you, but because you have walked so close to a breakthrough that the heavens themselves held their breath. And yet you skipped the signs earlier. Signs that were placed directly in your path, signs that were meant to shield you, to prepare you, to align you. But you missed them, not out of stubbornness, but out of exhaustion. Tonight, on December 14th, the realm of timing has shifted. Michael wasn't allowed to tell you until now. Heaven held this message back, guarded it, waited, because the moment had to be exact. And that moment is this one. Only a few seconds remain before a door that has been locked for years finally loosens at its hinges. That's why your spirit felt restless today. That's why certain faces came to mind out of nowhere. That's why silence felt heavier than usual, because something sacred has entered your timeline. He says, "Child, open it immediately. Not with your hands, but with your attention. Open this message with your spirit, with your awareness, with your willingness to listen deeper than you ever have before. Because what is unfolding over you is not a warning of doom. No. It is a correction of direction, a divine redirection that prevents you from stepping into a trap that was hidden beneath something that looked trustworthy. You have been surrounded by energies that disguised themselves as comfort. People who smiled but secretly drained you. Situations that promised stability but quietly ate away at your confidence. And Archangel Michael says one sentence that strikes like a sword of truth. If they knew how close your destiny truly is, they would fear losing access to you. Here is someone who hath been sensing your rise. Someone who hath been noticing your subtle blow increasing. Someone who, though they may not say it, has become uneasy because your spirit is awakening and your discernment is sharpening. Heaven cried not because you are weak, no, beloved. Heaven cried because you are chosen, and the weight you've carried was never meant for one person to bear. The tears Michael shed were the tears of a guardian who watched you struggle in silence, not realizing the magnitude of what you were fighting against. And still you made it here. Now he says, "Tell them the truth of why I wasn't allowed to speak sooner. Because if you had known too early, you would have spoken it to the wrong ears. Had you received this message before today, the atmosphere around you would have shifted too soon. Someone who was pretending to support you would have sensed the change and tightened their grip. By delaying the message, heaven protected the unfolding. By waiting, your future became reachable. By holding back, the divine ensured no enemy could sabotage what you did not yet understand. Tonight, Archangel Michael reveals the sign you missed, a repeated pattern that kept reappearing in your relationships, your finances, your emotions. Something that kept cycling back whenever you thought you were free. You thought it was coincidence. You thought it was just life. But it wasn't. It was a signal, a flashing message from heaven that your spirit recognized even when your mind did. And now, only 30 seconds remain before something in your atmosphere shifts permanently. A door closes. A veil tears. An influence breaks. Something attached to you is losing its legal right to remain. Stay here with me. Stay here with this message. Because the part Michael is preparing to reveal next is the part he cried over. Hold on, child. This is where everything begins to unfold. Before you step into the next moment, seal this revelation with your declaration. Type "I open the realm of truth" in the comments if this is speaking to your spirit. Lesson code 144 is now released. My radiant soul, as this message deepens, Archangel Michael moves even closer. His presence tonight is not the gentle whisper you may be used to feeling. It is firm, commanding, protective, because what he is about to uncover holds the power to shift your entire trajectory. He says, "Tell them the veil that hid the truth hath been removed. They can finally hear what I was forbidden to speak." This is not just information. This is unveiling. A revelation meant to shake the atmosphere around you and open your eyes to what has been happening behind the scenes. The tears he shed for you were not tears of fear, they were tears of recognition. Tears of seeing a destiny so powerful, so rare, so fiercely protected, that even the smallest wrong alignment could have triggered a delay of years. Tonight, the weight of your delayed signs is finally being explained. You did not miss those signs because you were careless, blind, or spiritually numb. You missed them because the enemy disguised them in familiarity. When something comes in a form you trust, you don't question it. When something appears as comfort during your weakness, you let it in. Michael now reveals that a certain connection or situation came wrapped in softness but carried a hidden intention. Heaven did not expose it earlier because your heart was not ready to detach. Had you known the truth too soon, the emotional backlash would have weakened you. But today, your spirit is stronger, wiser, and more awake. This is the exact moment heaven waited for. Michael shows a vision, a path covered in fog. You kept walking even when visibility was low, but you walked with hope, not knowing that each step forward was being watched by unseen eyes. You thought you were alone in your spiritual battles, but there were forces observing your resilience, studying your behavior, learning your weaknesses. One of these forces worked through someone who once felt trustworthy. Not necessarily an enemy, not necessarily someone with evil intentions, but someone whose presence in your life created spiritual imbalance. Every time you felt drained for no reason, every time your confidence suddenly collapsed, every time your joy disappeared overnight, this influence had been triggered. What Archangel Michael cries over is not the presence of darkness around you. It is the greatness inside you that darkness tried to imitate. The enemy does not fight the weak. The enemy fights those who carry the vibration of breakthrough. The ones who walk into rooms and unknowingly shift the frequency. The ones whose dreams threaten the plans of those comfortable in stagnation. You, child, are one of them. That is why the signs were subtle but continuous. That is why certain conversations fell off. That is why some people reacted to your growth with silence, jealousy, or tension. Not because you did anything wrong, but because your destiny is beginning to activate, and not everyone around you is prepared for the version of you that is emerging. Michael now speaks with urgency. Tell them the countdown is not a metaphor. It is an alignment window. The message about only 30 seconds left was heaven's way of getting your attention. These are not literal seconds in human time, but spiritual seconds in divine timing. The window is narrow. The shift is delicate. This is the moment where you must stay aware, stay present, and stay connected. What is breaking off your spirit is something you have carried for far too long. Something that whispered doubt into your thoughts. Something that made you shrink yourself. Something that forced you to dim your inner fire so others could feel comfortable around you. It is ending. And because it is ending, spiritual turbulence may try to rise as a distraction. Do not mistake discomfort for danger. Discomfort is the sound of chains breaking. Discomfort is the sound of identity returning. Discomfort is the sound of your old self releasing its final breath. Michael says, you were never late. You were never behind. You were simply arriving into the right moment. All the delays, all the pauses, all the confusion finally make sense when viewed from above. Heaven needed you here, in this exact frequency, before revealing what comes next. If your spirit feels heavier, or your emotions feel unpredictable, it is because your old alignment is collapsing. There is a revelation approaching you that will shock you. A truth about someone's intentions. A truth about why certain events kept repeating. A truth about why you always felt spiritually tired after interacting with a particular presence. Heaven is preparing to expose what has been draining you, and Michael is stepping in to cut the cord. But he warns with gentleness. When the truth appears, do not run from it. Do not justify it. Do not second-guess the message you already feel inside your chest. You have been spiritually correct for far longer than you realized. As this unfolding gains momentum, Michael says one thing you must hold into your heart. Your future is brighter than the pain of your past, and that is why I cried. You are closer to transformation than you think. Stay with this message. Something incredible is about to be revealed, and you will not want to miss what comes next. This is where the hidden pieces begin to fit together, and your spirit finally understands what was happening behind closed doors. Before you move forward, seal this moment. Type "I align with my true path" in the comments if this message is stirring your spirit. Blessing code 229 has now been released. My chosen heart, as this revelation unfolds even deeper, Archangel Michael now shifts into a tone heavy with both urgency and triumph. He says, the moment they feared has arrived. The moment you were built for. The moment heaven had been preparing in silence. There is something sacred happening over your atmosphere right now. Something that your spirit has felt but your mind has struggled to interpret. This is the hour when unseen intentions are revealed. When hidden motivations rise to the surface, when the truth you once sensed but could not articulate finally steps into the open. Michael has watched you walk through experiences that broke you not because you were weak, but because you were carrying spiritual weight beyond what most people could even understand. He saw you navigate confusion that would have crushed someone with less calling. He saw you hold yourself together when heaven itself stood still and whispered, "How are they still standing?" He cried because your future is so much brighter than the storms you have survived, and yet you were moments away from turning against yourself, believing you were the problem simply because the attacks came in familiar disguises. He cried because you were placed in atmospheres that taught you to water down your power, to shrink your spiritual voice, to question your intuition whenever it threatened the comfort of those around you. And yet, even while walking through that fog, you held on to hope. You held on to a thin thread of faith that kept your spirit alive. That alone is why heaven protects you so fiercely. That alone is why Michael has been instructed to speak now and not a second earlier. Tonight he reveals a truth you need to hear. You were never meant to stay where you were. The signs you missed were not punishments. They were invitations. Invitations to rise, to detach, to realign your inner compass with the divine blueprint written over your life. But because you were carrying so much emotional attachment and responsibility, you overlooked the spiritual indicators that something was draining you. Michael shows a vision of you carrying weight on your shoulders that did not belong to you. He shows how often you tried to fix situations that were never yours to fix. How often you tried to heal people who benefited from your brokenness. How often you overlooked your own needs because someone else's comfort mattered more. But that cycle ends now. The countdown of December 14th, the urgency, the heaviness in your chest, the sudden spiritual alertness you feel, it is all connected to one thing. You are stepping into an identity shift. Not a small shift, a complete spiritual repositioning. Heaven calls it the moment of awakening. The moment when the version of you that has been hidden behind survival finally emerges into purpose. Michael says, tell them the reason the signs were missed is because they were disguised as ordinary moments. But now the disguise is gone. You have been receiving inner nudges, sudden discomfort around certain people, unexpected clarity in situations you once tolerated. Your tolerance for low energy, draining conversations, or unbalanced relationships has been decreasing rapidly. That is not moodiness. That is spiritual detachment. Heaven is pulling you away from what no longer matches your calling. Someone in your life, someone you once trusted or once leaned on, have been unknowingly blocking the flow of your spiritual elevation. Not through malice, but through misalignment. Their energy clashed with your destiny. Their presence disrupted your clarity. Their influence muted your intuition. Michael says, if they had not reached this moment, the misalignment would have cost them their next blessing. Now they can finally see. And that is why he cried. Because he saw your future, the version of you fully awakened, fully aligned, fully standing in power. And he knew the journey to reach that version would require shaking loose everything that held you back. You are now entering a divine separation season. The lifting has begun. The detachment is underway. You may feel it as sudden distance, emotional shifts, or realizations that hit you in silence. Heaven is repositioning you, and you can no longer fit back into a place you have outgrown. Michael warns that the next revelation may surprise you. Someone's true intention is about to come to light. A pattern that repeated for years is about to break. A spiritual block you did not even know existed is about to dissolve. Your future is opening like a door that was locked for too long, and heaven is saying, walk through without fear. You have spent too many years dimming your own light to keep the peace. And now you are stepping into a timeline where your glow cannot be hidden. Stay here. Stay grounded. The next revelation is the beginning of your transformation. Before we move forward, speak this into your atmosphere. I step into my awakening in the comments. Blessing code 337 is now active. Like this message, share it with someone who needs it, comment to anchor your spirit, and subscribe so you do not miss the next revelation heaven is unfolding over you. Heaven moves when hearts move, and the words spoken in this message are living seeds being planted into the souls listening. When you support this mission, you are not helping a channel. You are releasing light into places where darkness once whispered. Archangel Michael says, where you sow, I command protection. I invite you now with the same voice heaven used to awaken you tonight. This message you are part of is not random. It is a spiritual calling, a partnership in the restoring of destinies. Just as the title speaks of urgent revelation, your support becomes part of heaven's response to someone else's awakening. Those who give are stepping into a prophetic act that heaven recognizes and multiplies. Speak life into this mission through super thanks, membership, or the PayPal link in the description. Release your seed with authority, and watch heaven open for you. My guarded and rising spirit, as this revelation reaches deeper layers, Archangel Michael steps forward with a clarity that cuts through every remaining shadow around you. His voice is no longer trembling with sorrow. Now it carries the steady strength of a warrior who has finally been permitted to reveal what has been hidden for far too long. He says, the moment you crossed into this message, the realm of truth opened. What was concealed is now unfolding. You may feel it in ways you cannot explain. A sudden heaviness lifting, flashes of memory resurfacing, or a quiet realization that certain people or situations never felt as harmless as you once believed. That is because heaven is pulling down the final veil. Michael reveals that the signs you skipped earlier were meant to save you from emotional depletion, spiritual stagnation, and a cycle that kept repeating because one piece of your life remained out of alignment. You thought you were stuck because you lacked ability, clarity, or direction. But the truth is far different. You were stuck because heaven was waiting for you to awaken to the misalignment around you. The situations that drained you were not just inconveniences, they were spiritual weights. The conversations that left you feeling exhausted were not random, they were energy leaks. The emotional storms you encountered were not mood swings, they were spiritual indicators that something in your environment was not meant to remain. Michael says, tell them the truth. The storm was not punishment. It was purification. Every tear you shed, every night you lay awake questioning your worth, every moment of confusion, none of it was wasted. Heaven was preparing you for separation. Not separation from love, not separation from blessings, but separation from the energies that kept your spirit small. You were being refined. Your discernment was being sharpened. Your heart was being strengthened. Even your delays were protection disguised as frustration. Tonight, Michael is allowed to show you what he was forbidden to reveal before. He shows you standing at a crossroads, surrounded by two paths. One path looks familiar, comfortable, predictable. It is the path you have walked for years. The other path glows with a strange intensity. It is unfamiliar, yet it feels warmer, safer, brighter. Every time heaven tried to nudge you toward this glowing path, someone or something pulled your attention back to the familiar one. Not because they wished harm upon you, but because your transformation would have separated you from them, and their spirit sensed it long before their mind understood it. This is why Michael cried. He saw you spiritually outgrowing environments that could not follow you into your next season. He saw your wings stretching even while you tried to fold yourself back into spaces that no longer fit the size of your calling. He saw your light growing so bright that it began to expose the intentions of those who stood close to you. And he could not tell you earlier, because your heart was still attached to what heaven was trying to remove. Now that your spirit has reached the readiness heaven required, Michael reveals the pattern you missed. Whenever you were close to breakthrough, something or someone triggered emotional chaos. A sudden argument, an unexpected disappointment, a wave of fear, a moment of doubt that came out of nowhere. That was not coincidence. That was interference. Something did not want you awakened. Something did not want you free. Something depended on your uncertainty to remain connected to you. But the countdown of December 14th signaled the end of that influence. You have entered the final seconds of a spiritual contract expiring. An attachment that once held authority over your emotions is losing all access. You may feel this shift as unusual peace, unexpected clarity, or sudden truth rising in your spirit. When heaven breaks a chain, the soul always knows. Michael says, tell them the awakening will not be gentle. But do not fear this. Awakening is rarely soft, because it must shake loose everything that pretended to be part of your destiny. There is someone whose true intention is about to reveal itself in a way you cannot overlook. Not through words, but through actions that contradict what they claim to represent in your life. When this truth comes, do not run from it. Do not explain it away. Do not soften its impact. Recognize it for what it is, divine exposure. Once this truth is revealed, your next season begins. The door that has been waiting, locked behind spiritual fog, opens. The opportunity that once slipped through your hands returns. The peace you thought you lost unexpectedly settles in your chest. Your intuition amplifies. Your confidence returns. Your sensitivity to spiritual signals grows sharper than ever. This is the moment heaven has guarded fiercely. And Michael says one last thing, with a fire rising in his voice. Their next elevation depends on what they do with the truth I am about to reveal. That is why you must remain present. The message unfolding next is not merely information. It is instruction. It is insight meant to redirect your destiny. What comes next holds the key to your release. Stay right here. Something powerful is about to be uncovered, and you will be grateful you did not look away. Before moving forward, anchor this truth in your spirit. Type "I choose the path of truth" in the comments. Blessing code 511 has now been activated. My awakening soul, step closer now, because Archangel Michael's voice grows stronger as the next layer of revelation opens. This part of the message is not gentle, because truth rarely arrives without shaking what once felt stable. Michael says, "This is the moment they finally understand why I wept over their future." He did not cry because danger pursued you. He cried because heaven saw how often you were left unprotected in environments that did not value the weight of your calling. He cried because you navigated situations that would have destroyed the spirit of someone less chosen. He cried because even in moments when you felt invisible, heaven watched you endure battles meant for warriors much older in spirit. And you handled them with a grace you never received credit for. Heaven saw how you kept giving, even when you were empty. Heaven saw how you kept believing, even when you were disappointed repeatedly by those who promised loyalty but delivered inconsistency. Heaven saw how you absorbed emotional storms from others, thinking it was your responsibility to fix what was broken inside them. But that was never your assignment. Your assignment was elevation, not emotional rescue. Your assignment was awakening, not self-sacrifice to the point of spiritual exhaustion. Yet you chose compassion even when compassion cost you pieces of yourself. That, beloved, is why heaven refuses to let you stay in that cycle any longer. Michael now unveils the truth behind the signs you missed. Someone around you carried an energy that subtly blocked your spiritual advancement. It was not always intentional, but it was real. Each time you grew, they became uncomfortable. Each time your clarity rose, they felt exposed. Each time your inner light strengthened, their shadow resisted. You wondered why you kept feeling drained after certain interactions. You questioned why your emotions felt heavy after speaking to or thinking about a particular person. You assumed it was stress or fatigue or simply a passing moment. But Michael reveals it now. It was spiritual interference. A draining influence disguised behind a familiar face. This is why he was not permitted to speak sooner. You would not have believed it. Your heart was still wrapped in loyalty, and loyalty can blind even the strongest spirits. Heaven needed you to reach a moment where your spirit was strong enough to see through the veil of emotional attachment. That moment has now arrived. The countdown of December 14th marked the final seconds of your spiritual blindness in this area. You are stepping into a time where your intuition will speak louder than your memories. Your spirit will see clearer than your emotions, and your discernment will cut sharper than the excuses you once gave on behalf of others. Michael says, "Tell them the truth is arriving like a sword." Something is going to shift in the behavior of someone around you. A mask is slipping. A motive is cracking. A pattern is breaking. And when you witness this shift, it will confirm what your spirit already sensed but your heart avoided acknowledging. This truth will not come to hurt you. It will come to free you. It will detach you from something that has silently held you back for far too long. And when it breaks, you will feel a sudden release, a sudden calm, a sudden clarity that feels almost supernatural. That is because it is. Heaven had been fighting on your behalf long before you knew a battle was happening. Michael stood between you and emotional destruction more times than you can imagine. He guarded your path when you walked near people with wounded spirits that could have infected your own. He shielded your energy when you entered places where your heart was too pure for the atmosphere around you. And even when you felt alone, you were never unprotected. Now comes the part he says you must not ignore. The elevation ahead requires separation. You cannot rise while carrying the weight of people who refuse to grow. You cannot awaken while staying in spaces that dim your inner light. You cannot expand while holding on to those who shrink your spiritual wings out of fear you will outgrow them. There is someone who benefited from your uncertainty. Someone who hoped you would stay small enough for them to feel comfortable standing beside you. Heaven is about to expose their role in your stagnation. But this exposure is not punishment. It is mercy. It is heaven giving you back the pieces of yourself that were lost in the process of loving the wrong energies too deeply. It is heaven restoring your strength, your clarity, your self-trust. Michael says, tell them their spirit is remembering who they were before the world dulled their intuition, and that remembrance is powerful. It is dangerous to darkness. It is liberating to your spirit. What you are about to see in your life is not collapse. It is clearing. Not loss, but liberation. Not endings, but beginnings disguised as departures. Something is shifting in your atmosphere even now, and heaven says, do not fear what leaves. Fear what would have happened if it stayed. Hold this moment. Anchor your spirit. The revelation that follows next will expose what heaven has been trying to show you for far too long. This is where your real transformation begins, and you will not want to miss what unfolds next. Type I receive my divine separation in the comments to seal this truth. Blessing code 414 has now been released. My awakened child, come closer now, because Archangel Michael is revealing a dimension of truth that you were never meant to discover through human perception alone. His presence grows heavier, not with sorrow this time, but with the full force of divine authority. He says, they are standing at the doorway of their emergence, and they must understand the war that was waged for this moment. What you have survived was not random. What you endured was not coincidence. Every emotional storm, every silent breakdown, every confusing shift in relationships around you was part of a spiritual conflict that heaven refused to let you lose. Even when you thought nothing was protecting you, Michael stood between you and forces that hoped to dismantle your destiny before it could fully awaken. Heaven watched as you walked through situations that tried to convince you that you were the problem. But deep inside, your spirit kept whispering that something felt off. You could sense the misalignment long before you could name it. That is because your intuition saw what your heart could not accept. Michael reveals now that a certain connection in your life carried an energy that disrupted your inner equilibrium. It did not always appear toxic, nor did it always present itself in openly harmful ways. But it drained you quietly. It made you question your worth subtly. It pulled at your spirit in ways your mind tried to rationalize. And you kept forgiving, kept adjusting, kept shrinking yourself to maintain peace in an environment that was secretly agitated by your light. The signs you missed earlier were moments when heaven tried to show you the truth through exhaustion, sudden discomfort, repeated emotional patterns, or unexpected tensions with people you trusted. But because you loved deeply, because your loyalty was strong, because your compassion overpowered your boundaries, you interpreted these signs as personal flaws instead of divine warnings. Michael was not allowed to speak earlier because your heart would have defended what your spirit was suffering from. Heaven waited until the weight of misalignment became too heavy for you to ignore. Only then could the revelation be released. Michael now shows you a vision. You standing inside a circle of light, while outside that circle stand figures representing past attachments, fears, illusions, and the energies of those who once held influence over your decisions. Some of those figures appear familiar. Others appear vague, representing phases of your life when your identity was fragile. He shows how each one pulled at you, not always intentionally, but emotionally and spiritually. And yet, despite the pulling, The circle of light around you never broke. That light was heaven's protection. It was Michael's presence guarding your assignment long before you knew you had one. He says, what they feared about your future is not darkness. It is the strength you carry when you are fully awakened. Someone around you sensed your rising before you did. Someone noticed your spiritual growth before you acknowledged it. Someone felt the shift in your energy and became uneasy, not because you wronged them, but because your alignment exposed their stagnation. When your spirit elevates, those who benefit from your confusion begin to panic. And that panic often shows up as distance, irritation, jealousy, or sudden inconsistency. You interpreted it as misunderstanding. Heaven interprets it as exposure. Now Michael reveals why he cried when he saw your future. He saw the version of you that emerges once you disconnect from energies that limited your self-belief. He saw you stepping into clarity so strong that deception can no longer enter your life unnoticed. He saw your confidence returning like a river breaking through a dam. He saw your voice rising with authority. He saw your heart healing in ways you once believed were impossible. And he knew the only thing standing between you and that future was the emotional attachment to a person or situation that could not travel with you into the next season. What you are feeling right now, whether it is heaviness, relief, confusion, or peace, is the internal shift that happens when heaven begins pulling you toward destiny alignment. The spiritual contract is ending. A connection that once served a purpose no longer holds authority. A cycle that repeated itself through your relationships, finances, or emotions is breaking at its root. The interference that once tampered with your clarity is losing access. And you, child, are rising above the patterns that once defined your struggle. Michael says, tell them they are entering the identity phase heaven wrote for them long before the world wounded them. This phase is not about becoming someone new. It is about becoming who you were before pain taught you to dim your spirit. You will begin to notice your thoughts changing, your desires shifting, your tolerance for negativity disappearing, your sensitivity to spiritual signals sharpening. You are not losing your mind. You are gaining your true self. Here is something heaven is preparing to reveal next. A truth that will confirm everything you have sensed but could not articulate. A truth that will separate your past from your destiny. A truth that will give you the closure your heart has begged for silently. Do not move away from this message. The revelation approaching now is the turning point. Before you continue, anchor this transformation in your spirit. Type I rise into my true identity in the comments. Blessing code 825 is now activated. My rising one. As this sacred message enters its next chamber, Archangel Michael stands before you with a clarity that pierces through every illusion that once clouded your spirit. He speaks with the steadiness of a guardian who has watched every silent tear fall from your eyes, every moment of confusion build within your chest, and every shift in your atmosphere unfold long before you understood what was really happening. He says, they must hear what has been kept hidden from them, because the moment of revelation is the moment their life begins to accelerate. And acceleration is exactly what heaven is preparing you for now. There is a reason you have felt spiritually restless, a reason your thoughts have been louder, a reason certain memories have returned unexpectedly. All of these are signs that the divine is unraveling a truth that you were once too emotionally entangled to see. Michael reveals that your soul has been living in a split reality, one part of you living through what you endured, and the other part waiting patiently for you to awaken to who you were becoming. You are now stepping into the merging of those parts. The old you who accepted less is dissolving. The awakened you who demands alignment is rising. Michael says, they must understand the intensity of what their future holds, for that is why I wept. The tears he shed were not the tears of fear, but the tears of victory. He saw a destiny that outshines everything you have lost. He saw the version of you that refuses to break under pressure. He saw the elevation waiting for you, the opportunities assigned to your name, the relationships designed to support your calling, and the spiritual gifts that have been dormant, but not destroyed. His tears were the tears of someone who knew you would reach this moment, even when you doubted yourself. You skipped the signs earlier not because you were blind, but because you were overwhelmed. The signs came during a season when your spirit was tired and your heart was burdened. When heaven whispered, distraction shouted. When intuition nudged, responsibility pulled you in another direction. When the truth surfaced, emotion buried it again. Heaven understood that revealing too much too soon would have fractured your healing process. That is why Michael was not allowed to speak until now. Divine timing is not a concept. It is a spiritual architecture. And this moment is a piece of that architecture falling into perfect alignment. He now reveals something crucial. You were being spiritually studied. Not by enemies in the traditional sense, but by energies that fed off your uncertainty. Certain individuals in your life became more comfortable when you were unsure of yourself. Your doubts made them feel stronger. Your silence made them feel secure. Your shrinking made them feel superior. Whenever you tried to rise, their behavior shifted. Whenever you gained clarity, they grew distant. Whenever your inner glow intensified, they felt threatened in ways they did not express verbally. Michael shows you a pattern that repeated. Every time you approached a moment of breakthrough, emotional turbulence surfaced. Someone would suddenly pull away, pick a fight, challenge your growth, or behave unpredictably. These disruptions were not random. They were the universe signaling misalignment. They were spiritual alerts disguised as emotional conflict. But because you cared, you ignored the meaning behind the disturbance. You interpreted it as personal failure or misunderstanding. Heaven interpreted it as spiritual interference. And now that you are awake, heaven can tell you the truth. You were carrying someone else's emotional weight. You were absorbing spiritual residue from a connection that was not designed to travel with you. This weight clouded your intuition, slowed your progress, and forced you into emotional cycles that were never meant to be yours. Michael says what they carried for so long was not theirs. And now heaven is lifting it. This is why the countdown was given. This is why the urgency filled your spirit. This is why the message arrived now. A cycle has ended. A concave is expiring. A spiritual attachment that once held influence over your emotions is dissolving from your timeline. You may feel this as a sudden surge of clarity, a sense of internal stillness, or a quiet but powerful resolve forming within you. That is your spirit reclaiming space that was once occupied by confusion. Michael reveals that the next revelation will concern identity. He says, tell them the truth about who they are because they have lived too long believing the lies of others. The world taught you to question your worth. Certain people taught you to doubt your voice. Past experiences taught you to fear your own intuition. But heaven is rewriting that narrative. You will soon remember the depth of your strength, the clarity of your spirit, the purpose of your battles, and the magnitude of your calling. What you are walking into is not merely healing. It is spiritual sovereignty. You are reclaiming your life from every hand that tried to shape it. You are reclaiming your voice from every moment that tried to silence it. You are reclaiming your destiny from every fear that tried to delay it. And heaven is standing behind you with full force. Michael says, the next truth will shift everything they thought they understood about their past. Stay close. The revelation coming next is the one you have been unconsciously seeking your entire life. Before moving forward, Anchor your spirit in readiness. Type "I embrace my divine birthright" in the comments. Blessing code 919 has now been activated. I chosen an unfolding spirit. Step deeper now, because this is the part where Archangel Michael unveils the truth that has been circling your life like a silent storm. He says, they have carried a name that heaven did not give them. They have lived under labels that were never theirs. Tonight, their true identity must rise. His voice is no longer heavy with sorrow. It is filled with triumph. You are standing in the exact moment heaven has been preparing you for. The moment where illusions fall away and your spirit steps forward fully awakened. This is not simply the next chapter. This is the unveiling of who you were always meant to be. Michael reveals that one of the reasons he cried when he saw your future is because he saw the gap between how heaven sees you and how you have been taught to see yourself. You have walked through life carrying wounds that made you forget your own spiritual authority. You allowed the echoes of past pain to define your worth. You let the opinions of those who never understood your spirit shape your identity. You allowed temporary situations to speak permanent conclusions over your destiny. Heaven cannot allow that any longer. The signs you missed earlier were signs showing you who you were not. Now, the message unfolding is showing you who you truly are. He shows you a vision of a crown that has been hovering above your life, waiting for permission to settle upon your spirit. This crown represents purpose, resilience, destiny, and divine assignment. He says they thought they were breaking, but they were being crowned. All the cracks you felt within yourself were not signs of collapse. They were signs of emergence. Your spirit was shedding identities placed on you by others so your true identity could surface. Every moment you felt misunderstood, every time someone underestimated you, every season where you felt invisible, was actually a season where heaven hid you until you were strong enough to carry your calling without distortion. Michael now reveals something deeply personal. You skipped the signs earlier because you were living through a version of yourself that no longer exists. That version of you was shaped by survival. It was shaped by fear, by loyalty to the wrong people, by emotional exhaustion, by internalized doubt. But now, heaven has pulled you out of that identity and into the one they assigned you before you were born. This part of the message is meant to reintroduce you to yourself. You are not the person who was overlooked. You are not the one who was abandoned. You are not the one who was rejected. You are not the one who had to beg for validation. Those experiences touched you, but they did not define you. Heaven defines you. And heaven calls you chosen, powerful, aligned, protected, awakened. Heaven calls you a carrier of light. Heaven calls you a breaker of generational patterns. Heaven calls you the one who rises where others fall. Michael says, tell them they underestimated their own spirit. When people walked away, you thought you had done something wrong. When relationships shifted, you questioned your worth. When doors closed, you assumed failure. But the truth is far different. Your spirit was outgrowing the spaces you were in. Your energy no longer matched the people around you. Your calling was pulling you away from environments that could not sustain your next level. Heaven allowed these shifts not to punish you, but to free you. The reason certain people became uncomfortable around you is because your spirit was expanding. Your discernment was sharpening. Your energy was rising. And anything that was not aligned with your purpose began to feel exposed in your presence. That exposure often showed up as distance, irritation, passive hostility, or sudden emotional detachment. You not regret it. You not grieve what left. Your identity demanded elevation, and heaven honored it. Michael now reveals something crucial, a major blessing, one written into your destiny long ago, hath been waiting for your identity to realign. This blessing requires clarity. It requires strength. It requires awareness. It requires that you know who you are. Because had it arrived earlier, you would have handed it to people who didn't deserve access to your destiny. Now that heaven has repositioned you, the blessing can finally move toward you. You are stepping into a season where your words carry weight, your presence shifts atmospheres, and your intuition becomes undeniable. Opportunities begin to seek you. The right people begin to find you. The wrong people begin to fall away. This is what identity alignment activates. Michael says, they are stepping into a future that made heaven rejoice. The next revelation will concern what heaven has prepared for you once you fully embrace this identity. You will not want to miss it. This is where your destiny begins to accelerate. Before we move forward, speak this aloud with authority. Type "I stand in my true identity" in the comments. Lesson code 744 is now activated. Like this message, share it to someone who needs alignment. Comment to anchor the truth, and subscribe so you never miss what heaven releases next. Identity awakening is not just a moment, it is a spiritual movement. When you support this message, you are sowing into the awakening of countless other souls who are also rediscovering who they were created to be. Michael says, where identity is restored, heaven pours oil. As you rise, others will rise with you, and your support becomes a vessel heaven uses to carry light into spaces that once held confusion. I am inviting you now with the same divine urgency that called your spirit awake tonight. Your giving is not a donation. It is a prophetic partnership, an act that heaven records and multiplies. If this message is speaking to your spirit, stand with us through Super Thanks membership, or the PayPal link in the description. Release your support as a declaration of your identity, and watch heaven respond. My steadfast and ascending spirit, breathe deeply as you enter this next chamber of revelation. For what Archangel Michael is about to uncover touches the very architecture of your destiny. His tone now carries the gravity of ancient truth, the kind that reorders a life from the inside out. He says, they must understand the magnitude of what is approaching them. Your future is not something small. Their future is something heaven protected with warfare. The weight of those words is not metaphorical. It is literal in the spiritual realm. What you are stepping into is so significant that heaven had to guard it until you were strong enough to receive it without sabotage. Michael reveals that your destiny contains a convergence point, a moment where what you lost is replaced, what you endured is justified, what you prayed for is released, and what was denied becomes accessible. This convergence moment has been building for years, but it could not arrive earlier because your identity was not yet aligned with the magnitude of the blessing assigned to you. You had to be reshaped, refined, elevated internally before heaven elevated you externally. This is why the journey felt long. This is why the path felt heavy. You were not being punished. You were being sculpted. Heaven could not release a blessing into hands that were still learning their worth. You would have offered it to the wrong people. You would have questioned whether you deserved it. You would have tried to shrink it to make others comfortable. Identity alignment had to occur before destiny activation could begin. That is why the message in the previous part was so essential. Now that you stand in the truth of who you are, the next phase can be revealed. Michael says, tell them the future I saw was radiant, but delayed by entanglements that weakened their spiritual focus. These entanglements were not always relationships. Sometimes they were habits, internal dialogues, outdated beliefs, old emotional wounds, and cycles inherited through family lines. You fought battles that did not begin with you. You carried burdens that were passed down spiritually, emotionally, or even genetically. You wrestled with fears that belonged to generations before you, and yet you are the one chosen to break them. That is why your journey felt heavier than others. That is why the road seemed harder. You were not only fighting for yourself, you were fighting for those who came before you and those who will come after you. Michael now reveals something astonishing. The blessing prepared for them is greater than the battles they survived. That is why the battles were so intense. Heaven does not allow warriors to fight for nothing. Every tear, every setback, every delay was tied to something you are about to receive. Your pain had purpose. Your suffering had direction. Your endurance had consequence. Heaven does not waste endurance. Heaven rewards it. He shows a scene in the spirit realm, a scroll with your name on it, wrapped tightly for years. Angels have guarded this scroll, protecting it from forces that tried to delay your awakening. This scroll contains assignments, opportunities, relationships, breakthroughs, and spiritual gifts meant only for you. Heaven waited for the moment your strength matched your calling. That moment is now. Michael says, they skipped the signs earlier because their heart was not yet healed enough to interpret divine instruction. A wounded heart misreads divine language. A tired spirit misunderstands timing. A confused mind doubts intuition. Heaven never blamed you for missing the signs. Instead, heaven waited for your restoration so you could see clearly. Now your vision is sharpening. Your intuition is activating. Your spirit is attuned. And because of that, the next phase of your destiny can unfold without distortion. There is a blessing approaching that will feel like restoration. Not partial restoration. Full restoration. Restoration in areas you forgot needed healing. Restoration in relationships, in opportunities, in finances, in spiritual clarity, and in your personal power. Something that was stolen, delayed, or blocked is being returned to you in a greater measure than what was taken. Michael calls this the compensation season. He says, tell them their future holds overflow, not recovery. You are not returning to where you were. You are moving into something far greater. Heaven does not bring you back. Heaven brings you forward. And what you are stepping into now is a divine reordering of your life. People who did not value you will be removed from your path. Situations that once drained you will dissolve. Doors that were locked will swing open. And your spirit will walk with a confidence you did not have before. Michael warns gently that before this blessing arrives, something will shift dramatically in your atmosphere. You may feel a sudden push to release certain habits, people, or environments. This is not loss, it is preparation. Heaven cannot pour new oil into old containers. You are being transformed into a vessel capable of carrying the fullness of what is coming. Do not fear the shifts. Do not hold on to what heaven is removing. Do not cling to what your spirit has outgrown. The blessing you are walking into requires space, clarity, and readiness. You are being positioned for acceleration. And when it begins, it will happen quickly, unexpectedly, and overwhelmingly in your favor. The next revelation will unveil what specific area of your life is about to experience divine reversal. Do not step away now. This is where the message becomes life-altering. Before moving forward, anchor this moment. Type "I receive my divine acceleration" in the comments. Blessing code 553 is activated. My advancing and illuminated soul, step with intention into this next part, because Archangel Michael is preparing to reveal the most specific and life-altering insight yet. His presence in this moment carries the weight of a message that has been preserved for the exact frequency your spirit now holds. He says, the next shift they are about to experience will not just be emotional or spiritual. It will be tangible. It will touch the physical realm of their life. You have come through identity awakening, through spiritual separation, through divine alignment, and now heaven moves you toward divine reversal. This is the moment when what was meant to break you becomes the foundation of your breakthrough. Michael reveals that your life has been marked by 3 major battles: the battle of the heart, the battle of the mind, and the battle of delay. Each one has shaped you differently, but together they prepared you for what is about to unfold. The battle of the heart forced you to confront emotional wounds you did not know were still open. The battle of the mind made you question your path until your intuition grew louder than your fear. And the battle of delay strengthened your endurance so you could receive blessings without doubting your worth. You thought these experiences were punishments, but heaven saw them as training for the magnitude of your calling. He says now, tell them the area of divine reversal will be the same area where they suffered the greatest disappointment. Heaven does not reverse what is insignificant. Heaven reverses what was stolen, blocked, or twisted by forces that did not have authority over you. This reversal will occur in a place you cried over, prayed over, or questioned relentlessly. You have asked why it was delayed. You have asked why nothing seemed to move. You have asked why, despite all your effort, something remained out of reach. That area is exactly where heaven is about to send restoration. Michael shows a vision of 3 doors, each representing a different realm of your life: relationships, purpose, and provision. One of these doors has been locked for a long time, not because heaven withheld it, but because some internal or external interference clouded your readiness to receive it. You may already sense which realm this applies to. Your heart remembers the disappointment. Your mind remembers the uncertainty. Your spirit remembers the waiting. This is the door heaven is unlocking now. He says, the reversal will come in a way that even they cannot predict. It will not follow logic. It will not follow the pattern of your past. It will not arrive through the same people who hurt you or the same systems that failed you. Heaven is sending this reversal through a new path so your spirit can breathe without the weight of old emotional memories attached to it. You will soon witness a shift that overrides years of stagnation. Something will move quickly, unexpectedly, undeniably in your favor. Michael is specific about this part. What they lost is returning multiplied. What they prayed for is coming purified. What they waited for is arriving accelerated. This is not compensation. This is restoration with divine intention. Heaven is not giving you back what you had. Heaven is giving you what you were meant to have. Some of you lost relationships that were never truly aligned to begin with. Some of you lost opportunities because you were surrounded by energies that could not support your success. Some of you lost confidence because you were drained by environments that did not recognize your worth. And some of you lost time, years even, to cycles that were meant to teach you but not meant to hold you. Every loss had a purpose. Every disappointment created fertile ground for this reversal. Heaven allowed certain things to fall apart so the right things could fall into place. This reversal is the moment when those pieces begin to align. Michael now reveals why he cried when he saw this part of your future. He saw you standing in a moment of breakthrough so powerful that even your past wounds would lose their voice. He saw your spirit rising without resistance. He saw your destiny becoming undeniable. He saw joy returning to places inside you that had been silent for too long. And he knew that the path to get here would require endurance most people would not have survived. But you survived. You made it to the gate of reversal. He says, tell them they are not stepping into blessing alone. Heaven is accompanying them. You are not walking toward opportunity without guidance. You are not entering a new season without protection. You are not stepping into change without divine orchestration. Michael goes before you to clear obstacles you do not see. Angels walk behind you to close doors that would distract or harm you. Heaven surrounds you on every side as you move into this next phase. But before this reversal manifests, something will shift inside you. You will feel a sudden internal peace, even before anything changes outwardly. This peace is not random. It is the spiritual confirmation that heaven has already moved. Your spirit receives it before your eyes see it. Pay attention to that internal shift. It is the sign that reversal is in motion. You might find that certain thoughts no longer bother you. Certain wounds no longer hurt. Certain fears no longer feel powerful. That is your spirit detaching from what was and preparing for what will be. Heaven cannot pour new wine into old vessels, and that internal shift is the reshaping of your container. Listen carefully as Michael says, what was closed will open. What was delayed will accelerate. What was silent will speak. And what was broken will be rebuilt stronger than before. This is not wishful thinking. This is divine architecture. Heaven has already written this reversal into your timeline, and nothing can stop what has been ordained. Stay close. Stay aware. The next revelation will uncover the force that tried to prevent this reversal and why it no longer has access to you. Before you step into the next part, seal this moment. Type "I claim my divine reversal" in the comments. Blessing code 882 is now activated. My resilient and ascending soul, come forward into this next revelation with steadiness, because what Archangel Michael unveils here reaches into the deep machinery of your spiritual journey. His tone changes once again, carrying the fierce certainty of a warrior who has watched over you since the day your destiny was written. He says they must know what tried to stop them, and why it failed. This is not a moment meant to inspire fear. This is a moment meant to awaken understanding. You cannot rise into your full divine reversal without knowing the force that attempted to keep you from it. Michael shows you a vision of your past, not in the form of painful memories, but in the form of energetic timelines. There were moments in your life when things should have worked out, when doors were supposed to open, when opportunities seemed aligned, yet everything collapsed without explanation. You blamed yourself. You questioned your worth. You wondered if you lacked something essential. But heaven reveals now that these collapses were not failures. They were intersections. Something stepped in to interfere, not because you were weak, but because your destiny carried too much authority for darkness to ignore. Michael says, what fought them was not human. What fought them with the ripple effect of their calling. The stronger your purpose, the heavier the resistance. The brighter your light, the deeper the shadows that try to surround you. You have been carrying a spiritual resonance that activates both heaven and opposition. Not everyone experiences the kind of resistance you have felt. Only those whose futures carry the power to shift generational lines, to break patterns, to create spiritual openings for others, face battles of this magnitude. Heaven reveals that the interference you experienced throughout your life often came through emotional entanglements. Connections that were not inherently harmful, yet carried unresolved wounds that spilled into your atmosphere. When you bonded with certain people, you unknowingly absorbed their confusion, their doubt, their fears, their instability. You became the emotional stabilizer for individuals who were spiritually unanchored. Instead of walking freely in your purpose, you were tangled in a web of emotional responsibility that drained your clarity. Michael says, they were never meant to carry that weight. It weakened their wings. There were also moments when your mind became a battlefield. Doubts arose that did not originate from your own spirit. You felt thoughts that did not belong to you. You questioned your path not because you lacked vision, but because interference clouded your intuition. You blamed yourself for hesitations that were artificially placed in your energy field. But now, heaven speaks plainly. Those thoughts were not your voice. Your true voice is stronger, deeper, wiser. You are returning to that true voice now as the interference loses its power. Michael reveals something profound. What tried to stop them was dependency. Not their dependency on others, but others' dependency on them. There were individuals who relied on your light to sustain their own path. They drew from your strength without replenishing it. They leaned on you emotionally, spiritually, or mentally in ways that kept you anchored to them. They were not malicious, they were simply unhealed. But unhealed attachments can become spiritual chains. The chains tightened whenever you tried to rise. Whenever you attempted to step into your own expansion, someone else's neediness pulled at you. You mistook this for loyalty, for compassion, for responsibility. Heaven sees it differently. Heaven calls it delayed elevation. The force that tried to block your reversal was not a single person. It was a pattern. A pattern of being available to everyone but yourself. A pattern of choosing peace over truth. A pattern of holding on to connections out of history rather than alignment. A pattern of shrinking to avoid triggering others' insecurities. These patterns formed an energetic wall around your destiny, slowing your progression and dimming your inner radiance. But Michael says, the wall has already begun to crumble. Heaven reveals that something shifted in you recently. A moment of the awakening. You may not even have recognized it, but your spirit broke an agreement with the past. A silent refusal rose inside you. A quiet decision formed, even if you did not speak it aloud. The decision was enough to initiate spiritual collapse against the forces that once held you. Heaven matched your internal shift with external authority. That is why you are receiving this message now. You unlocked the realm where truth could finally reach you. Michael shows the moment where the interference failed. It was when you did not give up, when despair could not keep you down, when loneliness did not break you, when confusion did not turn you bitter, when setbacks did not harden your heart. Your resilience became a weapon. Your hope became a shield. Your endurance became the force that shattered what once opposed you. Heaven calls your endurance the silent victory. Now the forces that tried to hold you are losing their grip because you no longer resonate with the version of yourself that allowed them access. Your frequency is rising. Your identity has shifted. Your spiritual posture has changed. Michael says, they cannot be touched the same way again. Their elevation has altered the battlefield. What once harmed you will no longer reach you. What once delayed you will no longer block you. What once drained you will no longer find attachment. As you move into the next revelation, you will understand exactly what heaven is preparing to release into your life. This is where purpose meets manifestation. Seal this message in your atmosphere. Type "I break free from every old pattern" in the comments. Blessing code 667 is now activated. My anointed and rising soul, step into this final chamber of revelation with full awareness, because this is where Archangel Michael unveils the conclusion of what heaven has long guarded over your life. His presence now carries triumph, completion, and fierce protection. He says this is the moment they must understand why their future made me weep with both sorrow and joy. Sorrow because of what you endured, joy because of what you are destined to walk into. You are standing at the edge of a spiritual threshold, one that only a few reach, because only a few endure the path you have walked. Michael reveals that the story of your life hath been shaped not by failure, not by loss, not by stagnation, but by preparation. You were being prepared to carry a blessing so monumental that had it arrived earlier, you would not have been able to sustain it. You were being strengthened through challenges that felt unfair but were designed to increase your spiritual capacity. You were being purified in situations that seemed cruel but were meant to remove attachments that would have sabotaged your destiny. Every moment, even the ones that broke your heart, were divine scaffolding building the structure of your future. He shows you a vision now, a vast field, once barren, now overflowing with light. This is your life after reversal. This is your life after spiritual interference has been removed. This is your life after awakening to your identity. You may not see the fullness of this yet, but heaven sees it clearly. Michael says, they are entering a season where nothing that once defeated them will be able to stand before them again. This is not simply recovery. This is resurrection. This is the rebirth of your purpose, your peace, your spiritual authority. Michael reveals that the blessing you are stepping into has multiple layers. One layer will restore what you lost. Another layer will elevate what you already have. Another layer will introduce what you have never experienced before. And the final layer will position you in a place where your presence alone becomes a testimony of divine intervention. You will become the evidence of what heaven can do when a spirit refuses to break. You will become proof that delay is not denial but preparation. You will become a walking manifestation of divine reversal. Heaven is preparing to release opportunities that once seemed unreachable. Doors that were closed will open with ease. Relationships that align with your purpose will appear without straying. Resources will flow with speed and accuracy. Your intuition will guide you with clarity. Your spirit will operate in strength. And the heaviness that once followed you will evaporate like mist at sunrise. Michael says, your season of carrying unnecessary weight has ended. There is something heaven wants you to understand deeply. The interference that once fought your spirit no longer has access to your identity. You have risen beyond the frequency where those battles existed. You are not who you were. Your elevation has removed you from the reach of what once discouraged you, drained you, confused you, or delayed you. You have stepped into a spiritual altitude where old patterns cannot survive. Michael sees your future with perfect clarity. He saw the joy returning to your voice, the strength returning to your decisions, the confidence returning to your posture, and the glow returning to your eyes. He saw the relationships that will enter your life, relationships that bring peace instead of confusion, alignment instead of conflict, reciprocity instead of draining imbalance. He saw your purpose becoming active, not someday, but soon. He saw the blessings that were once delayed now rushing toward you with divine urgency. And he cried because he knew this version of your life was always waiting for you. You simply had to reach the frequency of receiving it. Heaven now reveals one final truth. Tell them they survived the part of the story that breaks most people. You withstood the storm that was designed to test the limits of your spirit. You stood through seasons that should have extinguished your hope. You endured heartbreaks meant to silence your calling. But you did not break. You did not bend beyond repair. You did not lose your essence. You remained teachable, humble, open, receptive, and willing to rise again. That willingness is why heaven is opening your next chapter with such force. Michael says, their life will not return to what it was. Their life is about to become what it was always meant to be. This final message marks the completion of an old timeline and the birth of a new one. You are stepping into blessing. You are stepping into clarity. You are stepping into abundance. You are stepping into peace. You are stepping into purpose. And heaven will walk with you into every room, every opportunity, every conversation, and every breakthrough assigned to your name. As you prepare to step beyond this moment, take a breath. Your spirit has crossed a threshold, and nothing can pull you back into the places you were never meant to return to. Before this message closes, Anchor your spirit in divine finality. Help I walk into my destiny now in the comments. Blessing code 1000 is released. Like this message, share it with someone who needs awakening, comment to anchor your shift, and subscribe so you never miss the next divine transmission released over your life. Your destiny awakening is not just a moment. It is a divine movement that heaven is amplifying across the world. When you support this mission, you become part of the spiritual chain reaction that awakens countless souls who have been walking in darkness unaware of their calling. Michael says, where destiny is activated, heaven pours abundance. I speak to you now with the same authority that carried this message into your life. Your support is not a donation. It is an act of destiny alignment. It is a prophetic seed that heaven sees, records, and multiplies. As the title declared urgency, so does your participation carry power in this unfolding mission. Stand with this work through super thanks, membership, or the PayPal link in the description, and watch how heaven responds to those who help spread its light. Step into this moment boldly, for heaven commands movement, not hesitation.